Hello everybody, I'm Professor Lee again. Now I start the last part of my lecture. I had introduced the general trends of port development and environment change, especially paradigm for port development. In this area of the fourth industrial revolution, the movement to smart port system is inevitable. Now I will introduce port planning and development procedure. Port development policy. Before that, I'll remind you of port role and function shortly. The role of port are largely divided by economic side and regional social side of their regional development and cultural exchange information gate. The function of a port is not to provide a simple distinct service, but to serve as an integral part of transport links designed to move cargoes from originals to destinations. Therefore, port should provide a capability for continuous flow transfer between land and ocean transport mode. Main function of port is continuous flow transfer, that is a flow of cargo and passengers. The first one is supply services to freight, warehousing, and transshipment, etc., including land service with rail and road transport. Supply service to ships, rail and road transport. Besides that is the land side, but the service to ship, which is marine transport. So cargo and passengers served by the ship and land carriers. So port, usually the intersection of land and sea. So we put the port structure, infrastructure to give a transportation service, either land-based, shore-based. But still we should consider ESSD, sustainable issues here. Function of transport terminal is to support land access and maritime access. This figure is telling us the general drawing of transportation through a port. We should consider the infrastructure and the proper service and the physical condition of the port site and future port expansion plan. So we already mentioned the physical characteristics to the port plan, from tidal range to waves, currents, and also water depth, soil conditions, etc. Now let's move to the topic of port planning procedure. Generally, there are 3 steps for port planning. First, you have to figure out what is the problem to the port, which is a step for recognition of the status on the given port. Next one is a discussion stage for target and object of port project. At this stage, we should open the issues. All team here, the team should be in group from different parts. We call the interdisciplinary team, such as engineering and technology, and the economy and management, law and social field, environmental expert, etc. It should not be narrow-minded. The next one is the final stage, 2-level design stage, survey and feasibility study. That is a conceptual design stage and final design. And in this stage, we have to ask ourselves, is there a technically doable solution? Is it economically and politically feasible status? Is it environmentally sound? So the last one is the issue of the UN, and then without the environmental sound approach, it is not easy to start our port project here. So you have to make mind and remember it. The next one is the 6 major plan steps. Instead of 3 major steps here, 6 major steps for port planning, more detailed description and discussion on the project. Through the whole planning process, we have to prepare alternatives, evaluation of each with or without plans, and the comparison of alternatives should be made for decision on the final plan. Another approach is National Port Master Planning Procedure. This slide shows that it describes a more detailed national economy side, financial pursuit, traffic survey, investment scheme, including individual port master plan. Of course, there are a coordination and approval of plans. So once you have a approval and agree from the government, it will be published at the National Port Master Plan. So individual Port Master Plan was the assembling in the National Port Master Plan. This is 11 main tasks for individual Port Master Planning: long-term and short-term traffic analysis, broad engineering survey, calculation of rough cost of development. In this process, a serious discussion and feedback on the individual port master plan with the central and the local government here. And finally, install a control system for initiating a project at the right time. So that is the 11th stage for individual port master plan. Next one is porter. A single port project planning. It is 18 steps. This type and the level of plan can be applied and executed right away, although more tasks to be solved here. Of course, this covers the first planning process, 3 or 6 detailed steps. This is an example of port site investigation matrix in the process of port planning. This shows only for physical analysis of port site. There must be matrices for the economic and financial analysis of plan, but here the civil engineers are looking for all the items here, and also they figuring out the direct, indirect connection between each items. Let me move to decision of optimum design. Optimum design relies on the various factors. However, this shows engineering approach because we are using the design wave height here. Significant wave height usually used to that. Most of civil engineers recognize about this term, but the management side or operation side are not familiar with. But anyway, designers, especially the civil engineer, working for design wave to protect harbors, including water facilities, breakwaters, and other very useful structures. Design wave height selects port structure and base in terms of annual cost here. The annual first cost will be increased with respect to design wave height increases. Look at this line here. However, the annual maintenance cost will be reduced. The dashed line is annual maintenance cost here. So total cost is adding both showing like this curve here. Then the lowest amount of annual total cost lies here. This will be exact a point of design wave height to have the lowest annual cost. However, there is a certain gap or allowance, about 5% in terms of the annual total cost. Then you have a chance to select the design wave height about this range. If you select the lower part of the design wave height, then some maintenance cost will be higher than the design wave height here. So it depends on the budget condition in your country or in your department. Depending on that economic situation in your country, there is a certain adjustment of design wave height. But for the civil engineer, they usually select the safety post. Then they move to design waiver height higher value than a lower value, right? This slide shows the classification of port planning depending on plan of body and the area target, user's request, and the planning period. In any case, the plan should correspond to the request for the future diversity of port development. Each term has its own regime, so please check all this the regime depending on each cases here. However, let me look at the project planning period. Long-term plan. Why long-term plan is necessary? We cannot solve all problems of the port within a short period. That's why we divide a certain project short-term or middle, intermediate, and long-term. So there are a diversity of requests, limited space and budget, preservation environment, or economic growth. We should have certain policies for the port development. Most of all, we always consider the integral target. Through the survey on the existing situation, investment order will be set. So look at another diagram here. Although there is need certain decided planning period, but there exist variable conditions in the process of port development which cannot be proceeded anymore. It might be economic crisis from political reason, climate change, war, or disease, pandemics such as COVID-19, etc. We should adjust the plan. The most of plan usually 10-year based or 20-year based for the master plan. In Korea, we have a 10-year master plan progressive. Why should adjust the plan? Depending on countries, master plan can be changed and modified for every 5 years or every 10 years before the start of a new master plan. Here, new master plan will start after 20 years. In Korea, we have a new master plan after 10 years. So during the process of the master plan, in the middle part of that period, we have a chance to make a certain adjustment or correction and modification to the master plan. For every 5 years, and in Korea case, every 5 years, the situation is changed. And then we make corrections. And then the new phases start like this way. But all the other country cases, for 20 years and after 15 years, they have the corrections. Then the new master plan starts again. This figure only gives you plan adjustment impact, depending on sea level rise. In terms of safety of port structures, there might be different reasons for plan modification, but it's a choice. The red curve gives sea level rise higher than expected. The blue line. The green line is sea level rise lower than expected. So you have to make a correction of the measure. This measure is the design criteria. So if you protect over too much, that is over design, then you cost a lot of money. If you under design, make under design, then you will lose your structure during the operation of your port. So maintenance cost will be increased. Let's move to the port planning procedure. Now, this port chart shows, flow chart shows the general port planning process. The long-term strategic plan comes with a pre-investment stage and investment stage and operation stage. As shown here, in the pre-investment phase, aggregating port master planning comes first. Evaluate the port project requirement to decide whether or not the port development is needed. By reviewing the current conditions and existing facilities and analyzing the result. The next is a detailed port development planning. It is more detailed and identifiable problem areas found in master planning process. Then all available alternatives evaluate to solve problems. There might be institutional and operational improvement, modification or expansion of port and its facilities, and the development of a new port. There are factors affecting the decision to build a port. Let's talk about the port development plan of developing country. Why do they develop port? Through 10 years of IPW, International Port Expert Workshop, which I experienced, the reasons were summarized as these. The new national boundaries, hinterland, and a new opportunity to be growth engines near port area. So these two, so they want to develop hinterland side and assigning hinterland near the port area. It is a new chance to bring up possibility of the industry development together with the resource and product transportation near the port area. Of course, there is a chance to make a renovation to all the facilities. Then the hinterland side for urban planners, they have a chance to renovate the old urban plan too. Port development plan must have some consideration on environmental impact. These are major environmental impact factors which should be considered when we start the port development project. One of the issues is air quality, a reduction of emission gas from ship at the port. As mentioned in the previous lecture, IMO, International Maritime Organization, strongly regulates the emission from the ship and the port. AMP, alternating maritime power, instead of ship's power, which is using a lot of oil, creating greenhouse gas from the ship. And also the cargo handling facilities of the port also makes a lot of emission gas. So AMP, cold ironing, is hot in the port and shipbuilding industries nowadays. There are possible solutions for emission control from ship and port. Lower sulfur fuel use, scrubbers. There are many different types of scrubbers. It reduces NOx, it reduces SOx, PM, etc., depending on the scrubber types. I'm not going to make a detailed description on this. And then the bunker sea oil generator on the ship should stop when they are mooring port. And then the necessary power comes from land side. So alternating a power or clean power system from the shore side. Scrubbers, AMP, everybody knows about this already. AMP is a valuable choice for port planning, but still have some bottlenecks that we should have solved. A sustainability problem because of the emission gas from the ship or the cargo handling gears at the port. So it should be reduced depending on what kind of countermeasure you are using here. The problem, the AMP, is standardization of the land power connections. Because there are different type of power source, high voltage, medium voltage, low voltage are mixed with the cargo gears and the ship side too. So port already designed, then this facility should be added there, and then you have to change the existing power grid system, power network from the land side. There are possible solutions in emission control from ship and port. It is low fuel sulfur use, but the main trend That costs a lot of money from the oil company. The latest trend, this phenomenon, the AMP is the best choice nowadays. Anyway, as I mentioned before, the shore-side power system is for large container cruiser. They are necessarily about 6,000 to 11,000 voltage. The most of ship uses 440 voltage. So for port side, they prepare both. And then the ship side, on board side, they use 100 voltage and 440 voltages. So the conventional ship, they should have a certain innovation converters on board, interchanging 440 voltage and 100 voltages. From shore side, 6,000 voltages. Of course, the transfer to the ship, it is equipped on the shore side, but on the ship, some adjustment of the power, so they cost extra. For the container ships, $4 to $13 per TEU. Cruise passenger, per passenger, about $12 to $16 extra money goes to shipbuilding or shipping company. So extra charge gave them a burden for the competition, this economic situation here. These are shoreside AMP is supportable using the LNG gas and the barge supplies. Also, they are using the clean energy to generate electricity. We also have lots of facilities and equipment for cargo handling at the port, from container crane, forklift, straddle carry, other tractor, and even a truck. This slide shows a problem of air pollution from cargo handling in the port and solutions. The sustainability is to the first choice. So they are changing the power source from the traditional oil to electric or LNG gas motor, etc. There are other solutions in partial, both in port planning phase and operation phase. AMP facility and LNG engine power supply system change to berth arrangement, traffic control, etc. For example, if you reduce 10% of the entering speed of ship, then the CO2 emission will be reduced about 30%. Therefore, in this situation, by operational or management scheme, you can reduce the CO2 gas. Other SOx, NOx could be affected with the speed of the vessel. So operation management regulated by the entering and the going law regulates that. And sometimes restriction loading and unloading equipment speed too. Besides that, all the equipment should be replaced or prohibited to enter certain port. The one way. Another target is using LNG bunkering. So LNG bunkering industry may reduce fine dust. Therefore, the diversify energy by introducing other energy types, for example, new natural gas, or the LNG engine system to container ships, cruise ship. That will reduce a tremendous amount of the greenhouse gas. This is one of the LNG engine. Another one is inadequate planning on capacity and arrangement of port zone. Consider only for cargo handling capacity. The paradigm changes, right? This causes serious problems such as a traffic jam, noise, air pollution, landscape damage, and even compensation request from the resident. Multiple space plan adjusting logistic needs with the ocean cultural request might be a basic approach as per advanced port planning case study. Anyway, everybody agrees with the new port and the logistic trends are smart port and the smart logistic system in terms of automation of system and intelligent networking of ship land with the support of artificial intelligence, AI, IoT, etc. Port development plan includes solutions for urban problems such as sewage, excreta, livestock waste, waste burial, incineration, waste oil treatment, power plant, etc. So all these are urban problems. So when you make or develop a port area, you receive all these plants in the port area. And by doing that, you can solve some kinds of conflict between city and port. The impact review determines whether a port project or alternative plan is in compliance with existing standards and regulations, and using acceptable procedure attempts to develop environmental impact on the whole. A transformation of the review of multiple environment objectives into a single value or ranking of project is a final step in the impact assessment. Only the project that meet at least the minimum acceptable standards remained in the set of acceptable alternatives. A sensitivity analysis is necessary to find the critical impacts and activities due to many subjective judgment and prediction at the preceding steps. In the process of impact assessment, some trade-off cost and environmental impact is needed for subjective decisions. So environmental impact analysis is necessary for selecting the final design. This is the case of assessment scenarios for port development plan in terms of port safety, which use extraordinary waves. For port infrastructure design, on the left side here, using all the natural environment force. The other side is ordinary wave for port operation. So extraordinary weather condition for safety, that's we adopt the final design parameters there. But the normal day, usual day port operation process, we use the ordinary waves for designing that. Each environment impact assessment process separated by one side is long-term, the other side is short-term, day-by-day operation measures. And combines these two gives you the port master plan or emergency plan, etc. This is another issue. This is about global risk in terms of likelihood and impact, which were presented in the famous World Economic Forum. We call that Davos Forum 2019. Extreme weather events, failure of climate change, mitigation and adaptation, natural disaster. You remind the COVID-19, which is the disease, natural disaster, one of disaster. War, that is artificial, cyber attack and data fraud or data theft, steal in the post-industrial revolution area. Risk control is the most important issue nowadays. I already mentioned the risk and opportunity looking at the trend of world ocean industry, shipping, shipbuilding, port construction in the era of post-industrial revolution at the previous lecture. The problem is where do you use and prepare these topics and these tools? Well, therefore, we know risk and performance analysis are important. There are lots of ways for enhancing the quality of port project management. We knew it. However, most countries stop their project after feasibility study or pre-feasibility study. We must try to link the result to initiate the port development project. For that purpose, it is necessary to set up information sharing platform in real-time access. It is still doubt to open fully due to internal domestic reason, but it is necessary to move forward. When we had this meeting and discussions with the participants of International Port Export Workshop, of course, there are numerous barriers for port planning and development countries. All these barriers, you don't have enough data for site investigation, and it is hard to find the skilled labor force over there. And then in order to assess a certain target, it is hard to assess there. So unnecessary permission procedure comes there, and then it is hard to penetrate this permission. And also all the administrative procedure is so complicated. And then sometimes to make a project a success, receiving country wants a lot of requests, and then we have to wait for a proposition of overall investment. So we face some kind of investment risk. What about the political and the economic status of the receiving countries? So it costs a lot of money for the construction structures. Inflation, oil gas price drop, economic sanction, etc. These are another problem too. After discussion during the meeting, we came to a resolution for the barriers by doing like this. Among these, the most important is strengthening collaboration and responsibility for port project. We have to support the participant country or participant engineers, participant flyers, etc. Let's share our experience on overseas port project. This is Korea's experience. Look at the cooperative overseas port development project since 2029. For 10 years, about 29 countries, 30 projects have been done, but none of them extended to the next level yet. They just stayed at feasibility study level. We should have moved to construction and operation and management stages. The background and the contents are these. What is the problem? Various causes were analyzed and enlisted here through port project. Reliability of project cost, different opinions from port planners of country concerned, no reflection on national port development plan, lack of budget, legal problems, and it might be tiny, but the corruption problems, etc. What is the policy to get competitiveness for driving the port development project? To establish financing competitiveness, to understand the local standard, and to take practice on optimum project cost estimation. Each relates to fund scale and financing support, understanding nation's institution and the standards, and the project risk control, etc. The slide indicates examples and the application of port planning and development, both Korean and foreign port. The Korean port, we have 31 trade ports, 29 coastal port, 418 fishery port. We investigate a lot regarding port development plan in terms of short-term and long-term. However, foreign port case, more than 20 different foreign port project cases. We used to discuss on port project of our own country during UNCLOS or port expert workshop. Besides, we do not have time for that, therefore I just skip them. However, when I looked at the foreign port project, there were many things to be solved, such as income structure. We don't know the principle of the structures, and also the concerned country is not making guarantee to the new structure. PPP, this is the public and private the cooperation based orders placed by large construction companies. For the investment, so conservative, it is not easy to persuade them, and also lack of expert personnel for the project assessment. So the project country, they rely on their own country's personnel. The guarantee criteria. The developing countries, but they don't have a certain criteria or credibility. And also the political stability problems. The different governments have a different policy or different project. They do the drive. So the started project should be stopped right there. So, for example, hasty construction due to the tight construction period and the rush construction. So limited working hours, so delay of delivery. The schedule is always changing by the concerned countries. The reduced budget amount and poor supervision. So the budget is not fixed during the procedure of the planning process. The budget is flexible. It's not flexible, but it continuously fluctuating. Frequent design changes, failure to check underground obstacles. So most of structures are necessary for the foundation. But you don't know what kind of structures are passing through under the ground. They don't have any drawings. And also, nobody knows about the new plan over that underground structure. And also complex still are vehicle traffic. In order to get over construction approval delay, it is hard to get through. Wait, or you need extra money, cost to get through. And also the construction work itself delays. These are the developing countries. Or do you participate in the foreign project? Then they make sure all these problems solved in order to finish the port development plan project. Let's move to a summary. This is a summary of this lecture. What should be done for the port development in the area of port industrial revolution responding to paradigm shift? What is the possible solution? Do we have new growth engines for ocean industry? What is the main interest today? I might conclude my talk such that under world environment of rapid change, there is an opportunity for port infrastructure development. However, it is necessary to collaborate with overseas by strengthening partnership and controlling risk and performance, considering sustainable development and the living environment ecosystem. So these are main issues for the future port planning. I would like to make a suggestion for port planning and development workers, drivers. Let's look at the sustainable development. What is sustainable development? As per UN Sustainable Development Goals, it is improvement on humans' life. It includes economic growth together with the enhancement of social benefits such as health, education, environment, preservation. On the other hand, we have to save the possibility of development by the next generation. There might be cause and impact which could not be solved in the present generation. Okay, well, this is the end of my lecture. Thank you for your attention to the lecture. Because the 15 weeks lecture was compacted within 3 hours due to the time limitation, I had to skip many of them. I apologize it, and hopefully at least you learned something, and I could have some basic information through this lecture. Alright, I'm Professor Jung Lee of Korea Maritime and Ocean Universities. Remember me and have a good day. Goodbye. Thanks.